It's 4 o'clock. Do we have everybody present and accounted for? I see Walt is not back yet. I'm wondering if Lee was able to call in today. He's traveling.
Karen, I haven't seen Lee yet.
Okay.
And I am not sure if everybody from Steeplejack is here. I know there's one so far that I can see. If there's
Okay.
somebody in the waiting or attendee that is part of the group that isn't part of the panelists, if you raise your hand, I can go ahead and allow you in. Oh, there's a group. There's Bob and Eric. Okay, I think we're getting there. Except for, well, Walt's in too. So everybody seems to be here.
Okay.
Jenna's missing.
Jenna is actually not missing. We'll talk about her in just a few minutes. I know Leah's out of town. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 4:01 p.m. and our first order of business. I should say this is the meeting of the Manzanita Planning Commission. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes from our July 18, 2022 meeting. I'm assuming that all of the commissioners have seen the minutes, and I would ask at this time for any additions, corrections. I'm gonna just jump ahead and say hearing none. I'll entertain a motion. Correct addition.
Hey, Karen, I don't know if you can hear me, but you are going in and out and you are frozen on the screen right now. So,
Oh, no.
yeah, I wonder if it's, okay, I think I can see you now. So I'll just let you know if it happens again, but I don't think anyone caught your action.
Let me absent myself for just a minute and make sure nobody else is using the internet in the house. Sometimes that slows down the video. So give me 1 second.
Sure thing.
Sorry about that. Am I back?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In that case, I'll re-say what I said a moment ago, and that is we want to, our first order of business is to approve the minutes from the July 18, 2022 meeting. I'm assuming the commissioners have all seen them, and if there are additions, subtractions, corrections, spelling errors, now's the time to correct them. I hear none, so I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, John. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye or raise your
Aye.
hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and none opposed. All right, minutes are approved as submitted. Okay, the next order of business is to have the audience introduce themselves. It looks like we don't have a whole large audience today, but I would throw it to Scott to turn people's, unmute people as needed.
Okay, as I unmute you, go ahead and state your name. And if you're a resident, give us your address and phone number, or at least your address. And Bridget, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, I am a owner of 2 houses on Horizon, 8844 and 8822 Horizon.
Hey, thank you, Bridget. Connie, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Connie Vanderwall, and I live on Glenessen. I'm a full-time resident.
Thank you, Connie. And Donna, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Donna and Mark Miller and 869 Knob Cone, full-time resident.
All right, thank you, Donna. And Linda, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Good afternoon. I'm Linda Kestner, full-time resident at 588 Depot Avenue.
All right, thanks, Linda. And Mark, if you want to unmute yourself.
Oh, hi, Mark Kestner, Epo Avenue, full-time resident.
All right, thanks, Mark. And Matt, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
I'm Matt Gray. I'm one of the 4 co-owners of 194 Lanita Avenue, which is right next to the proposed site. Myself, my husband, and our 2 business partners live in Yaakani.
All right, thanks, Matt. And Rick, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi, I'm Rick Hikas, one of the developers with Highlands at Manzanita.
All right, thanks, Rick. And then we have Sandy, you should be able to unmute yourself. Sandy, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
I really don't have anything to say right now, so I'll unmute.
Well, we're asking everybody to introduce themselves.
Oh,
That's
okay.
in attendance.
Sandy Wood, I live at 120 Beeswax.
All right, thanks, Sandy. And then we have another Layla in here. I don't know if it's you, Layla, or somebody else.
It's Leila.
Is that Leela?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, Leela, you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself. And I'm not hearing you, Leela. Okay, I'll allow Terry to unmute himself. That'll be the last one. Terry DeSaro.
Yes, I'm here. Just observing, listening.
Okay, we'd like everybody to introduce themselves.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yes, Terry DeSaro. I'm one of the owners of the property next door to the Steeplejack project.
Okay, thank you, Terry. And the last one is Leela Salmon, but I think she might be having a problem with her mic. So that was everybody in attendance.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. I'm going to turn it over now to Layla to talk a little bit about the Planning Commission selection process.
Thank you very much. So someone noted that Jenna wasn't here today, and that's because Jenna is no longer on the Planning Commission. She is our newest appointed city councilor. So becoming a city councilor, she automatically needs to resign her position on the Planning Commission. So with that in mind, we do have 2 folks that are up for that whose terms end in December. So according to the Planning Commission ordinance, the mayor would appoint a new planning commissioner to fill out the end of Jenna's term. However, the city council has recently adopted new rules that apply to their rules of procedure with respect to committee appointments and commission appointments. And that process includes the establishment of a selection committee, which would include one representative from the committee in which we are filling a position. So that would be this body, the Planning Commission, myself, and then someone from the city council. And then the three of us would establish selection criteria for this process, which the city council would review and provide feedback and then ultimately adopt. And then we would accept applications for the position. The 3-person committee would review those applications, determine a short list for interviews, interview candidates, and then make a recommendation to the city council to fill that seat. I did want to mention that there are 2 seats, as I mentioned, that are up in December. And so as part of this process, we're no longer reappointing people directly. Folks that have served on the commission whose appointments end in December would actually need to participate in the application process. That was something that the city council asked to be part of this process. And so what I wanted to do is just take a moment to describe that process and then make a recommendation that we actually go through the process to do all 3 appointments at once. This process is a lot more involved than just directly appointing someone to fill a position. And so going through 2 processes really isn't very efficient. And so that's the approach that I'd like to take to both appoint somebody to fill out the rest of Jenna's term, which ends in 2024, and then the 2 upcoming appointments, the 2 upcoming positions that complete at the end of this year. So I wanted to throw that out there and see if anybody had any questions. And then my hope today was to have the Planning Commission nominate somebody to serve on that committee with me. And then at the next council meeting, we would select somebody from the city council to participate in the selection process. Then we 3 would work together to establish criteria that we would bring to the council in November, likely accept applications for a couple of weeks in November to hopefully make a recommendation to the city council in December.
I guess first thing to ask would be, is any member of the Planning Commission interested in serving on the criteria committee?
And those folks would help with the interviews and evaluation of the candidates too. So it should be someone whose term is not up at the end of the year.
To tell you the truth, Layla, I don't know when my term is up. Am I one of the ones who's?
No, actually, and there's something here, I'll pull it up on the website. We actually created a committees and commissions webpage for this reason. So hang tight and I'll pull it up. Meantime, perhaps if you have any feedback on the approach of doing all 3 at once, would appreciate that. Not everybody at once, please. Okay, hang tight. I'm going to show folks who are here. Oh, Scott, can you let me share my screen? Thank you, sir. Okay. So do you all see the city's webpage? Yes.
Yes.
Negative. Okay. So if you go under government, and you go to committee and commission directory, this shows who's on the council, who's on the planning commission, budget committee, et cetera, short-term rental committee. And it has the length of term, the month those terms expire, et cetera. So Karen, you're next year. Bert and Steve, your terms are up in December of 2022. And we'll have to remove Jenna from this list because she's now up here. So for folks that are interested in serving on committees and want to know when availability or opportunities arise, this is the best spot to get it now. I thought it'd be good to have that information though for folks.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So we'll
Well,
take Jenna down.
I don't see a huge amount of enthusiasm from the rest of the panel, so I will volunteer myself as tribute.
Excellent.
If you'd like, if that's okay with the rest of the commission.
Barring no objections.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Give me a thumbs up, thank you. Okay, well, I'll be your man then.
Great. You can be our woman, and I may actually ask council to nominate somebody prior to the council meeting so we can meet a little sooner and maybe try to get ahead of it so we can do be sure to have a slate for folks in December.
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay, great. And if folks have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out, but I'm looking forward to working with you. Thank you for volunteering, Karen.
Sure, no problem.
Right.
I just want to add to the record, since we've got it open, that I really want to acknowledge Jenna's contributions in the last couple of years on the commission. I think she's brought some really good energy and focus, and I think she's going to be great on the council. So that's my public thanks to Jenna. Okay, so now comes the most boring part of the meeting. And that's just setting us up for the hearing today. And I'm going to go through the procedure that we use for land use hearings. And I want to make sure that I get through all of it because it's all part of the record on this hearing. Okay, so my name is Karen Reddick-Yurka. I'm the chair for the Manzanita Planning Commission. And I will be presiding over 2 land use hearings today. Members of the Planning Commission are appointed by City Council and serve as volunteers. This is the time and place set for public hearings in the matter of a design review application for each of 2 projects at 220 Lanita on tax lots 3 and 4, block 14, Manzanita Beach subdivision by Harder Holdings Coastal LLC. The first hearing concerns the West project on tax lot 4. Did I get that right? West project, tax lot 4. I believe that's correct. I hope so because that hearing is now open. The decision to approve or deny this request will be based on the design review standards listed in section 4.080, 4.090, and 4.137 through 4.156. And the standards for the commercial C1 zone in section 3.040 of ordinance 95-4. The specific criteria are summarized in the staff report and will be reviewed at this hearing. Excuse me one sec. All testimony and evidence must be directed toward this approval criteria or other criteria in the zoning ordinance which you believe may apply. Please note in their decision, the Planning Commission may reject comments or ordinance citations that do not directly apply to this request. Note that an issue which may be the basis for an appeal to LUBA must be raised not later than the close of the record or at the following final evidentiary hearing of the case. Such issues must include specific statements or evidence that allow the commission and those in attendance an adequate opportunity to respond. Each case will proceed with the applicant's presentation, followed by the staff report, comments from those in favor of the request, and finally those opposed to the request. Commission, staff, and participants may direct questions to those who testified, Finally, the applicant will be entitled to a rebuttal. Generally, the applicant is entitled to 20 minutes to make their presentation. All other speakers should try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please avoid repetition. If someone else has already expressed your thoughts, it is perfectly all right to state that you agree with the statements made by a previous speaker. If you sent a written response to the proposal, please do not repeat your comments. They are already part of the record. Prior to the conclusion of the first hearing on a land use application, a participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence or testimony regarding the application. If such a request is made, it will be up to the commission to determine if the hearing will be continued to a date and time certain, or if the record will be held open for submission of additional evidence or testimony. If the record is kept open, it will be for a minimum of 7 days with a short rebuttal period thereafter afforded to the applicant. With that out of the way, I need to ask the audience to raise your hand if there are any objections to the notice that was sent in this case. Scott, you'll tell me if anybody raises a hand.
I'll let you know. At this time, I have no hands raised.
Okay. Any objections to the jurisdiction of this commission to hear and consider this case?
And I do not have any hands raised.
Okay. Are there any declarations from the members of this body of conflicts of interest or bias, ex parte contact, or site visits? Now let's start with Steve.
I visited the site. I have had no contact. I'm not biased. And what's the last one?
No conflicts of interest.
No conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you. Bert?
I have visited the site. I have no bias, no ex parte contact. And what was that last one?
Last one's always conflicts of interest.
No conflict of interest.
Yeah. Okay, how about you, Phil?
No bias, no conflict of interest, no ex parte contact, and I have visited the site.
How about you, John?
No conflict of interest, no bias, no ex parte contact, and I visited the site.
Okay. And for my part, I have visited the site. I have had no ex parte contact with anyone involved in this application. I have no bias and no conflicts of interest. Hearing that, does any member of the audience wish to challenge the right of any member of the commission to hear this matter by reason of actual or potential conflict of interest or bias?
And Karen, I do not have any hands raised.
Okay. All right. So we're now ready to proceed with the hearing on what we're calling Project A, a retail business and 3-unit hotel on Lot 4, the west property. Did I get that correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. So would the applicant please give an overview of this development to the commission?
Okay. Is it customary to share a screen during this time?
Sure.
Fine.
Just a minute, Bob. Let me make you a co-host and then you should be able to.
Okay, appreciate it. While we're waiting, Scott Edwards Architecture is the firm that I'm associated with. I'm an architect there and project manager. I'm accompanied tonight by Eric Wenzel, who is also an architect who is working on the project. You may hear him speak. He may chime in. We've been working on this project together, so he may have more input on something than I do in some certain cases. We also have Brody Day, who is with Steeplejack Brewing. He's also here as a panelist as well. And so owner representation is here as well. I wanted to note that.
And you should be able to share your screen, Bob.
Okay. Okay, so this is the lot 4, which is building A, or the hold on, I'm getting an error from Zoom. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, I'll keep proceeding. Zoom seems to be working fine. So this lot here is it's developed separately. We are obviously submitting 2 applications at the same time. but they are considered in buildable and developable independently as 2 lots. So we'll start with this one. The site itself has kind of minimal existing features currently. The goal and the interest is to develop this to be a retail space on this lower level, which is close to the street level here, right at the northwest corner of the site. We're developing this would be an arcade retail space that has an opening out to a courtyard area to the east, and also this back area here. This building it's an extension of this building. It's all the same building, but it is a small 3-unit short-term rental hotel. The site itself is has a steep slope to it, but we are satisfying the parking requirements on the site that would be mandated by having the hotel units on the adjacent lot in the back. So we're tucking all of that back through a shared easement approach. So I know that parking will be something that comes up that we'll talk about, but as that is the one item that would be maintained by easement for access for that shared driveway, which is located right in the center between those 2 lots. This is the retail space on the northwest corner. We have a small couple steps down to get to the courtyard. That leads you to a garden, a bocce ball court, and then entrances into that retail space from the east side and the north side. There's an ADA ramp or accessible ramp to bring you down to this lower courtyard area to ensure access into the retail space. And then a series of plantings, gardens, that sort of thing down on the lower level here. And the accessible path would take you to the accessible unit of the 3-unit hotel, which is down here on this north side. We have 3 units, as I said. There are 2 studio units located here. I'm going to switch over to the architecture plans to review that.
Hey, Bob, I think we're stuck on the cover sheet still.
Oh, really?
There might be some type of error going on.
Any better?
No, it's still there.
Okay.
Stop sharing, then maybe start again.
Yeah. I apologize. Any better?
I'll give it a second. There we go.
Okay. Okay. Can everyone see this one now? Okay, great. So studio unit, and then the 2-bedroom unit would be accessed from the south side, where there's a separate entry off of that the back side of the southeast corner of the lot. I'll go back to the civil plan because can you guys see the civil plan that I'm showing now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks, Eric. So since it sounds like you didn't see that earlier when I was motioning, but to bring things up to grade, we have a couple small steps to bring you down to a courtyard that will help contain like the sound, and then the side of that outdoor courtyard here. So it'll feel like a kind of a garden sort of environment. We have an accessible ramp that brings you down into that courtyard for access into the retail space, and then a studio accessible unit for that hotel, which would be right down here on the north side of that accessible or that hotel area. The shared driveway, which I mentioned earlier, is located here with the parking lot back here to serve that. So the accessible parking would take you back into the space to get into that hotel unit. That's kind of a general overview. On the second floor, we have a roof deck that is for this retail space for kind of seasonal outdoor seating. It would have planters on top, some tables and chairs, and would be used during the busy times of the year when the need would arise for that and when the weather permits it. I know the Airbnb, or not Airbnb, sorry, we're so used to calling them different names these days, but it is a short-term hotel. And so that access here for the upstairs would be for the studio unit here on this side. So this one would enter off of a shared outdoor landing for that would be conjoined with that roof deck area too. And then the second 2-bedroom unit would only be accessible from the ground floor. It does not have an extra access to that balcony space. Each of the units have an outdoor area to them as well. For the upstairs unit, they have an outdoor balcony, and then the lower unit has a little garden on the west side there. And then the 2-bedroom unit would have a larger kind of garden set up here down on the southwest corner with landscaping. Stormwater is handled on site with infiltration planters, as well as permeable pavers for the parking areas. I think that concludes it. Eric, do you have anything else to add that I may have missed?
No, that sounded good. Thanks.
Okay, Walt, would you like to give your report on this, please?
Okay, thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, real good. Again, this is the project. There are 2 projects here tonight. This is the one on lot 4. This combination of commercial space and also a hotel. As noted by the applicant, the subject property has a single tax lot, but is made of 2 separate subdivision lots. Each of these certainly our understanding that they can be developed independently. And what we're looking at is the project on lot 4. Applicant provided a summary of the layout. Again, just quickly, there's about 1,000 square foot, actually 960 square foot retail frontage. They're looking at a video game arcade. There's a 3-unit hotel, one of them a 2-bedroom and the other one singles. Access is through a driveway, which is really designed to provide parking for the hotel. And I'll get into the parking a little bit later. These activities are permitted within the C1 zone, which is the zoning on the subject property. The application does require a design review approval through the Planning Commission. I think the applicant touched on the use of the phrase Airbnb. These qualify as hotel units. Want to make sure there's no misunderstanding. When it comes to the review for design review, section 3.040 sub 3 of our development code contains the basic requirements for the C1 zone. I'll just briefly touch on these to note that in summary, they do comply. The building does meet all the setback requirements. The building official will review the building plans and know that the structure is within the 28-foot 6-inch height limitation. They meet the minimum requirements for landscaping. There are no awnings or marquees that project from the building that would violate those provisions. The submitted plans include a stormwater plan, as well as calculations and directing the stormwater to, as he described, various parts of the property. The floor area ratio of the building is 0.639, and the ratio does not exceed the 0.65 limit. Signs, if installed, must comply with our code requirements, and that can be handled administratively. With regard to the issue of parking, since the lot does not exceed 5,000 square feet in area, commercial parking is not required for the retail space. The hotel space must provide the parking. And in the staff report, I go through the calculations that in this case, they are required to provide 5 parking spaces, at least one of
Is
them.
anybody else having?
Hello?
I'm sorry, you were cutting in and out for me. I don't know if it was
Oh,
just
really?
me or everybody else.
Okay, hold on for a moment. Let me turn the volume up to 11. Is that a little better?
Yeah, it was my video connection was frozen. So
Okay.
it might have been me. I'm sorry for
Okay.
interrupting.
Oh, no problem whatsoever. Again, the staff report goes through the calculations for the hotel. They're required to have 5 spaces. They're using the adjacent site for their parking. They do include the 1 ADA space, which is required. There are 2 additional spaces on the site, on the adjacent site. However, the applicant will need to find 2 more spaces to meet the 5 space requirement. And those spaces can be within 500 feet of the subject property. Let's see. Provisions of 137 to 142 address site plan reviews, use of the fill for structural elevation, installation of parking structures, and matters regarding trees. I'll just note that the significant fill is not required in this case. Proposed parking is all located in the back on the adjacent property. There are no existing trees on site. However, additional plantings will be provided along the perimeter. Section 4.150 seeks to determine whether the proposal maintains the unique character of the community. In this case, the exterior will be primarily finished in vertical redwood siding. Trim pieces will include wood and metal features, designed similar to the proposed restaurant, which we will be reviewing on lot 3, and somewhat similar to other commercial buildings. On balance, while the design is original, it generally fits into the area, certainly does not offer a finish or color scheme that significantly contrasts with existing structures. Sections 4.151 to 4.153 address definitions, requirements for design review, and the review procedures. I'll simply note that that is the purpose of tonight's hearing. We are following those requirements. With regard to specific design criteria, these are found in section 4.155. And let's see, there are 5 items here. The first one, in terms of the setback from the street or sidewalk, design creates a visually interesting or compatible relationship. As the applicant noted, there is open space adjacent to the sidewalk. There is basically that interaction between the street and the commercial structure. And again, the structure does meet those setback requirements. The second item looks at vegetation. There's no existing vegetation on the site that will be maintained, but they will be including a lot of new plantings and shrubs that are designed basically to correspond to plantings that are found in the Pacific Northwest. And they will also serve as part of their storm drainage facilities. Item 3, the design relates or integrates the proposed landscaping to the adjoining space. Again, I think the way it's designed, the hotel functions are in the back, commercial retail is up front, and I think that integrates well with the street. And the applicant noted that the yard design is similar to other area commercial structures. I think it does enhance this portion of the street. The design gives attention to the placement of storage or mechanical equipment. Basically, on the layout, such equipment is placed in dedicated utility rooms. Exterior mechanical and electrical equipment is placed behind the structure as not to be visible from Lanita. And finally, all functions, uses, and improvements are arranged to harmonize with the natural characteristics. I'll just simply reiterate that the applicant noted the site will integrate into the stormwater drainage plan, and there will be landscaping and also things such as perforated paving stones to help with the drainage. Finally, we come to section 4.156, which is the criteria for architectural landscaping. The first item talks about integration and harmonizing of the development. I think in this case, usually design is subjective, but I think generally consistent, finish, color, style with the majority of the buildings. It uses a wooden exterior, as many adjacent structures, and does not include the use of corrugated siding or similar metal finishes. The building and arrangements respond to the surrounding neighborhood, and the focus is on the retail, which is going to be attracting the public, and that faces the street. Second item is landscaping. And again, I think I've touched on that. The applicant indicated Oregon and coastal native plants were selected. These will include wax myrtle, Pacific vine maples, and rhododendrons, and being incorporated in the irrigation system will be incorporated. These plantings will also be incorporated in the storm drainage. With regard to landscaping, as noted earlier, this layout does comply with the minimum requirements for landscaping coverage. Grading on the site is the fifth item. The grading and contouring were studied, designed to make sure stormwater is accommodated on site. There's pavers, stormwater planters, along with roof stormwater loads were all considered. Necessary calculations were submitted as part of this application. This design certainly does avoid monotony. There are two levels. I think there is some visual interest, and I think it's also enhanced by the terraced patio space. The seventh item is the design addresses pedestrian nature of commercial space. I think I've covered that previously. Again, it's forward facing to the public space. Lighting will not be industrial strength, if you will. Looking at the schematics and the designs, they're very simple lighting, generally on doorway entrances, along walkways, and near the outdoor seating. Lights are commercial in size and style, and face downward, sort of direct the light downward. Finally, is the issue of compatibility. Just simply note this structure does comply with the city's height requirements, FAR restrictions. The finish is, wooden in nature, gabled roofs, etc. This is not a monolithic project, broken up with canopies, gabled roofs, upper story setbacks. I think on balance, the improvement is consistent with the intent of the design standards. While not an architectural match with surrounding structures, the design and finish are generally compatible with these structures. Finally, there is a 3-unit hotel as part of this project. Hotels are defined under ORS 699. And we had a previous discussion on hotels. We are including recommended conditions that they comply with the state requirements as well as comply with necessary county requirements. On balance, we believe this proposal does comply with the code requirements. So our recommendation to be approved, subject to the conditions that are found in the staff report. And with that, that concludes the report.
Okay. Are there any questions from the commissioners to either the applicant or staff? And I've got a bunch of them, so I'm going to wait and see if any of you hit mine first.
Okay. We'll follow you. Karen.
Oh, you can back
Yeah.
clean up for me. Top garden area that's shown on the second floor.
Excuse me, Karen, you did cut out there for a while. Could
Dang
you start again? I'm sorry,
Yep.
my turn to apologize on the interruption.
No, I appreciate it. I wanted everybody to actually hear. Okay, so I have a bunch of questions. And my first one is on that seating area, the open area on the rooftop, I guess is what you're calling it. First of all, there isn't anything on the actual second story roof, or, you know, the very top rooftop. It mentioned a rooftop garden, and I wanted to make sure that there isn't another garden area above what's visible from Lanita. Is that correct?
No, that's correct. The lower retail structure has the roof deck on it with the seating and planters. And then
Okay.
the back structure has the form. There will be a gabled roof. So there will
Okay.
not be any additional things on top of that one.
Thank you. So on the rooftop structure above the retail area, who sits there? Who goes there? What is there something served there, or is it just people from the street? If they see an empty seat, can go up and sit down and watch, do people watching, or I'm not clear how that particular area relates to the retail space.
It's intended to be overflow seating for that the retail space itself. So there would be some kind of small food service that we're in discussion with the owner on, or like a little bit of, you know, maybe some beer, that sort of thing. And that would be a part of the outdoor experience of that space. Would be, say, if it's like ice, like soft serve, for instance, like if someone were to grab soft serve, go outside and sit down in the garden area, or go up to get a little bit of a better view and enjoy the street. It's meant to kind of connect to the little garden area and also to like the street at large, but it would be under the jurisdiction of the owner.
Okay, and speaking of the soft serve, in some of the pictures or some of the drawings, there's a walk-up window, and then some in the other drawings, it's not there. Do you intend a walk-up window on the
You know,
side?
we explored that. Thank you for the question. We did explore that. I'm glad you brought it up. I think that from the circulation standpoint, we're going to have a window there, likely for ventilation, or just for like opening it up to the street. But ordering will take place inside. We're not looking at using that as a functional like walk-up window per se.
Okay. Okay, let's see. On the red cedar siding, are you intending to finish that in any way, or will you leave it to weather? What's your intention?
I think that warrants some more discussion with the owner on what end goal would be, but I think that we're intending to let it weather.
Okay, these are the kind of questions that come up in design review, and so I would appreciate being prepared for these kind of questions. What color is the metal roof?
It's a dark gray.
Dark red. Thank you.
Dark gray.
Okay. Thanks. Can garbage trucks collect if the ADA space is occupied?
Trash collection will be brought to the street.
Okay. How did you measure the building height, the maximum building height?
That was done in accordance with the zoning ordinances specifications. Eric can speak to that a little bit more. We had a whole diagram within the submission for that. Eric?
Yeah, since it was a sloping site, we used the definition as defined in the Manzanita zoning code of average grade plane. And we, on each side of the building, selected the midpoint and took the elevation at that midpoint, added those up, and then divided by 4. And that gives you your average grade plane. And that's basically per the IBC But we used your definition.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Is there any screening on the rear lot line to hide the back of the building from the residents who they're building new homes right behind there? And what is, I didn't notice a fence. Are you putting a fence back there, or is it just
Yes. Mhm. No,
tree
good question.
planting that'll eventually get full?
Yeah, it's a good question. We're the owner is talking to the owner of that lot as well about putting up a fence. So whether or not they put it up or we put it up, there will be a fence to screen the two different uses. And that would be within the height and limitations that are stipulated in the code.
Okay, so I'm gonna write myself a note, sorry. Okay, I had a question about the plans, and unfortunately my desk isn't big enough to open the plans here. But on one of the elevations where it identifies what materials are going to be used, it shows, it looks like you've got some kind of glass. I don't want to call it fencing, but glass with some metal trim that is for, I guess, to keep people from falling down the stairs or off the roof or whatever. But in other places, that material is identified as some kind of aluminum. And I don't maybe I can't read the
Sure.
plans.
Yeah, I can explain that. I think what you're seeing is it's intended, it is a glass railing system, but it will have a like aluminum cap on it as a part of the way it's constructed to hold it together. So I think that's probably the clarification is that it could be that the tag showing the material is just slightly showing that railing, the top of the railing instead of the glass portion.
Okay, so it's glass with a aluminum cap, and is that black?
It would be to match the building standard, like darker gray and black color. So it's like a charcoal.
Okay. Let's write that note down. And it looks like, I think in your summary, and forgive me that I don't have the exact words in front of me, but it talked about you may use some unique glass. It looks like some kind of stained glass into the apartment areas. Will you or won't you? And will they look substantially like what's in the drawing?
Yeah, we're working with the glass artist on that and what it will appear as, and we could submit that as a part of like a signage package if it needed to be. It's not fully developed yet, but it's intended to be a decorative glass element such as stained glass. That would either be a geometric design or depict like a local coastal scene or plant like a manzanita tree, for instance.
Okay. Okay. And will those be illuminated in any way?
They will be translucent. So it will vary in terms of the illumination. With if someone is inside of the unit, there may be some glow from inside, as you would have with any window. But they are a translucent element between the indoor space and the outdoor space.
Okay. And I don't see where any of your signage is going to be located, and what materials and how any signage is going to be illuminated.
We were to submit those as a separate signage permit. We did not outline where those are in the submission.
In our standard, it requests location, size, and method of illuminating signs.
We can follow up with you on that or note it. The front side of we would be envisioning some kind of like blade sign mounted to the building or adjacent to the small little eyebrow overhang at the windows there. But we don't have that included in the submission at this time. It was our understanding that could be a part of the signage package that was submitted for the signage permit.
Well, I know they need to be submitted for the sign permit, but they also, it's one of the things that we require in a design review package. Let me think. One other question on the landscaping. I noticed that there's only one vine maple that's visible from Lanita on the property, and everything else is below grade. And on the sides, I didn't see any landscaping or even potted plants on anywhere other than that. That looks like that one tree is the only planting that's going to be visible. And most of the planting needs to be in the front of the property on the street facing side. So how are you accommodating that?
If I'll share my screen, I think that may be a bit easier to show. So on the landscape planting plan that's attached, the lower courtyard area that's the vine maple that you mentioned. This area here is provided as landscaping as well, which would be ferns and other ground cover. There is a smaller area down here as well that would be, it's daylit a little bit by the stair that's overhead, but it would be also visible, and that's our infiltration planner for the site. You are correct that there is more trees that are back here that are also screening it, not just from the street side, but we've got those some other trees down here. So they do fill out the site, and we did look at it from all sides and understand the views from other properties as well. But the moment here is very pedestrian focused, and it does have the landscaping in this corner and along here, but we're using the side yards and the front yards to reach the minimums that we need to satisfy the zoning code.
And if you stay on that picture, I'm right where you are, that drawing, it looks like a gate in the upper left corner. It goes into that side yard. Is that a gate? Looks like there's a little opening there.
Yeah,
So there's that's fenced across there.
it is. Yeah, there would be a fence here with access to get to this back area.
Okay, and so that makes that landscaping not visible from the street level. Is that correct?
Likely it would be less visible. It is lower ground cover here anyway, but you would see some of the trees when you look back, especially if you're across the street and you can get the perspective. So they won't be entirely invisible, but it is, it's 5 feet from the neighboring lot line. So it's a smaller kind of path. The focus is really going to be on this front courtyard sequence.
And what is the material along that side? That a walkway to get access to one of the rental units?
No, it's ground cover and landscaping, and then this will be partitioned. We're going to have some like downspouts on this side, so this would be fenced off on closer to the unit side in order to create a more of a private pocket, but it's not shown to be more than that.
Okay. Okay, I think that's all of my questions on that, I think. Anybody else?
Yeah, I want to go back to Karen's question about the gate. What's the purpose of the gate? Are you trying to keep people from walking back there, or?
Yeah, it would be for maintenance access. There's really no function back there. So the gate would be just so that we're not fully blocking it off. There is an existing power pole at that corner where the gate is. There's a guy wire that goes back. We'll need to have some kind of maintenance access to get back there occasionally. And the goal is to keep people from the units wandering out into that area too, where there's no specific function.
Do you have any other questions, Steve?
I do. Thank you, Karen. Your ADA hotel room is on, how do they have access to that?
It's through that courtyard space.
What about they park in the back? How they get up to their room?
It's also through that, it would connect through there. So we've studied the grades to ensure that there would be an accessible route to go from that parking space up to the unit.
So the grade ADA approved on the driveway?
Yeah, it would be compliant with the ADA standard.
Now your area for where your amenities are, your game room, whatever you call it, are you going to serve food and drink there?
Yeah, it would be like smaller bites or snacks, or we're looking at like yeah, it wouldn't be like hard alcohol or anything like that. It would be, it's intended to be like kind of as a way to showcase more of like the steeplejack beer as well, but not in like a really beer focused way. It's really intended to just be like there's maybe one thing on draft and not a lot of like beer service necessarily.
So the amusement, the games, what kind of games are you looking at?
And you have a favorite?
Yeah.
You a Pac-Man guy? We have it. I mean, it is looking at video game arcade type of style, like traditional games. There are classic games and like some pinball machines, but it's not, we haven't picked the exact ones yet.
So would this attract youth and you're going to be serving beer there? Because that, can we do that?
Yes, you can. I mean, I can, it is allowed. Yes.
I personally don't know. That's a question I have. And who you going to be attracting with your?
No, and we're the goal is for families. I mean, I want to clarify that. I know that we're talking about specific things, but like the vision is for a place for families to gather. And it's not intended to be you know, a big drinking spot or a nightlife spot like that. It's really intended to be a family oriented space.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Karen on that upper deck with all the seating you have up there. If you're not going to have, would you serve food up there and people can, are you going to be serving people up there? So the attraction of it. And I don't know if I got an answer whether it's open to the public or it's all private on that upper deck.
It's not intended to be a public park. It would be intended for the use of the business on site. So that we don't have servers planned in terms of like the kitchen operation or anything like that. There's not that side of, frankly, there's not that much space for that sort of service to be functional. So it would be more of a takeout sort of thing, or like a to-go sort of items. But to go meaning it would stay on site, it would be managed and observed. But it would, and again, like it's, as we know, like tourism and hours of operation and the amount of people on site could vary greatly from season to season. So the intent is to keep it more as a seasonal option to expand to if things are going really great and the weather's really nice.
Well, that brings up about the hotel. I mean, you're going to have service people there for the hotel. How are you going to maintain the hotel and reservations and cleaning, and you providing spaces for cleaners to come to attend to your rooms?
We do have space allocated for on the ground floor for a washer and dryer for handling linens within the units. Service would be there to clean out rooms, etc. And that would be managed through an offsite manager.
Yeah. It's very limited parking back there. So you have supplies coming and you got customers there, your customers out front, there'd be street parking. And it's always an issue here in Manzanita, at any city, you know, where the car is going to go. And we're very limited. And that's our concern. So you have to service the rooms. Are you hiring a cleaning company to service the rooms? How are you going to do that?
Yeah, a cleaning company of some kind would be used to service them. I would say that when the rooms are being cleaned, it's going to be, you know, between guests. So from that time period, like there really should be a vacant parking space for those people to utilize to clean. and just to go back, we are meeting the minimum requirements that are there for that parking for the units. I do think that and believe that with the sequencing of reservations and with the cleaning periods that would be available for them when people should not be parking there, that space would be adequate for a cleaning crew to come in and use that.
I do want to stay on the parking for a minute because you haven't met the minimum requirements. Understand it, there are parking spaces. Is that correct, Walt? We should have 5 parking spaces, 1 for each unit, and then 2 for the hotel management.
Right, it comes out to, I think, like 3.25 spaces. You round it down based on the code requirement. And then there is 2 for what's called the office manager. Now, it doesn't go beyond that. So I think a reasonable interpretation is 5 spaces.
And how will you supply the other 2 spaces?
So yeah, the wording in the code that we were interpreting was, it says manager's unit. It requires 2 spaces for a manager's unit. And there wasn't a specific space allocated for like a live-in hotel manager on site. It wasn't listed as a requirement either. So we did not realize that extra 2 spaces would be required until the staff report came out. So we're looking at that to see if there's something that we can come to an agreement to find a place within the 500 feet. But it wasn't our understanding that that would have been a requirement that was triggered. It wasn't intended as any kind of oversight. We just didn't realize that this would be something that might be provided as a requirement.
Okay, and I'm with the short.
Karen, you're cutting out again. Could you kind of go through that?
Sorry. Yeah. Can you hear me now? Oh, shoot. You're all frozen.
Hey, Karen, this is Scott. Karen, this is Scott. If you can hear me, if you turn your video off, well, at least we should be able to hear you.
Sure, I can do that.
There, see if that helps.
Yeah, hopefully that's better. Thank you, Scott. I hope you're familiar with the short-term rental requirements that you can only have an owner can only have an interest in 1 short-term rental property in Manzanita, and you have 3. And I know you're calling this a hotel, and you're going to meet all of the hotel requirements. But if you can't, for example, have space for an owner or a cleaning crew, then they become short-term rentals. And I just wanted to be clear at this point that 2 of them would be unoccupiable. So, I mean, that's a comment, not a question. Okay, Steve, did you get through all of your questions?
I had one more about that. We got that high water problem just to the south of them. And are they going to be required a geotech for development?
Who, these guys or the next door neighbors?
Well, I remember when they wanted to have a hotel with a basement, I guess, and they couldn't do it because of the water problem. I want to make sure that their water is not going to affect the people to the south.
The question is, will the management of our water on site affect the people on the neighboring property? Is that it?
Yeah, is it soil? Will it percolate all the water that you're going to accumulate on site there?
Got it. Well, we've worked with the civil engineer pretty diligently to find a way to manage all the stormwater on site. So the systems are all designed and slightly over designed to handle the basins on the site for the drainage and the infiltration within the site. Did that answer the question?
I don't know if it does actually. All I know is there's a problem with water just south of you, and just want to be certain that what you do is not going to affect them. I guess just be aware that.
Okay, well, we'll take that back to the engineer and talk to them about it as well. But I do know that they've worked to mitigate against any sort of spillover on other sites.
Okay, anything else, Steve?
I'm good.
Okay. Bert, it looks like you have a hand raised.
Yes, and I would like to know if has an independent, say, expert looked at the plan for disposal of the water on site, and can they assure us that the system will be designed, that the system as designed will do the job? I guess that's the it will not result in water running into the properties to the south and lower than this property.
So the question is if about an independent consultant and if they've been consulted.
Yeah, it's really more of a question, I guess, for this to the city, if they can verify that the plan will actually do the job.
I can probably respond to that a little bit. Bear in mind, we have sufficient information at this point that we believe stormwater can be accommodated. When they go through, if this is approved, and they go through their building and engineering plans, that will be reviewed by the city engineer at that time. If the city engineer finds that their plans are insufficient and cannot meet the requirements, simply put, they don't build the building. And that's where the independent, if you will, review comes in. The city engineer has to verify that this particular proposal does meet with the city requirements.
But the design review section clearly states that the planning commission cannot approve a design that doesn't meet the code requirements of the city. So it puts us in the position of approving perhaps a design and then having it disapproved later by somebody else, by the city for some other reason.
Walt, I'm gonna speak up on this one. So Bert, they've met the requirements that have been laid out by the city for years as far as the amount of retention required for impervious surface. Their engineers provided the documentation. They provided the drawings, I believe page C9.00A. It is something that I think they've taken more steps than needed to address this with the impervious surface. And like Walt was saying, at the time they submit, we can have the city engineer review to verify that it in fact is going to take care of that. They do provide overflow, so if their containment system does reach capacity, it's going to pump up to the catch basin up at the top of the property to dispose of any overflow water. So it prevents it from washing into the neighboring properties. The other aspect of this is that they do have the retention, their catchment facilities in if you look at the notation, let me look at the number here. on page C 9.00A. It says infiltration facility protection area, do not compact native soils at facility subgrade elevation. And that's to ensure that any water that is caught in there is able to infiltrate into the ground surface as intended. So I hope that clarifies it a little bit as far as on our aspect of it.
As long as the requirements of the code are met, or the 95-4 are met with regard to approving the design goes, I believe that's
Okay.
reasonable.
All right, thanks.
Did you have other questions, Bert?
Yeah, I'm concerned about the 2 extra parking spaces that need to be provided according to the code, and when that will be accomplished. And I suppose that if it's not already in Walt's conditions of approval, that we better be sure to put it in there that 2 extra parking places can be, that our approval of the design is based on those parking places actually being provided by some certain date. I think that's all I have.
Actually, condition C notes that prior to receiving a building permit, the developer shall submit evidence of a shared access and parking agreement that includes adjacent property to the east. In addition, the developer shall provide evidence of 2 additional off-site parking spaces in compliance with provisions of ordinance 95-4.
Okay, that should do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen?
Yep.
I have a question on the ADA parking. We got 2 separate independent lots. It's 1 tax lot, but it's 2 separate independent lots, 2 separate businesses. One is going to be a restaurant and one is going to be a mixed use, a hotel with an arcade. Now, when I look at the requirement for ADA parking on was it 1.90 subsection 2, it talks about 1 ADA parking is allowed under those circumstances, but we got 2 lots with 2 separate companies, 2 separate businesses. I'm wondering, are they going to be required for 2 ADA parking lots, 1 for each business, plus the parking for the hotel?
Walt, do you want to address that?
Yes, thank you. This was a very confusing issue, and Steve, I'm kind of with you on that. The code just talks about if you're up to 5,000 square feet in area for commercial uses, parking is not required. So for again, I don't want to get into the next case, but I'll just say for the commercial uses on those 2 lots, there is no parking requirement. I went through the code though, it talks about 1 ADA van space based on building code requirements. So what do? Do you provide 1 for each business? Do you provide 1 for some sort of reasonable interpretation of the parking? So I looked through, what if each of these businesses were standalone on, say, a commercial shopping center or whatever? And I calculated that they only require a total of 19 parking spaces overall. And that's in the staff report. With the ADA requirements, 1 to 25, you're only required 1 van space. And so that could be sufficient, that would cover the parking for both entities. And in fact, it does raise the question, if there is no parking requirement, that certainly falls below the 1 to 25 requirement that's in the building code. So I think a second interpretation could be that no ADA parking is required. But I think this was a reasonable way to accommodate it. It recognizes that the hotel is going to be using the spaces, and the retail uses are not required to have any parking whatsoever. So they really fall in the zero category. So in effect, the parking is really designed to accommodate the hotel.
Well, that's interesting, Walt, because that says for 5,000 square foot lot, you got two 5,000 square foot lots. And I read that each one has to comply independently. Now, if you want to combine the two lots into a 10,000 square foot lot, then 4.090 subsection C doesn't apply.
Well, right now, if there was no hotel involved, take lot number 3 next door, and I don't want to bleed into that application any further than necessary, but they would not require any parking, zero parking. And then the question is, what is the ADA requirement? ADA requirement doesn't come into play until you require at least one parking space. They require 0 spaces. And so the ADA is really limited to the hotel. They're the only ones who have required parking, which calculate it out to 5 spaces. And so they are required to have at least one ADA, and in this case, an ADA van space. So that is included, but they need to have 2 additional spaces within 500 feet of the subject property. So any commercial activity, independent lots, no parking is required. It's a 0 requirement. And the only parking that's necessary is for the hotel.
Well, what confuses me is it says that no parking will be required except for the ADA parking spot. No
Right.
parking space in excess that required by the American Disability Act.
And we went ahead and we contacted Northwest Code professionals, and they looked at the building code requirements in the staff report, and the requirements for 1 to 25 is 1 ADA van space. And there is 0 parking requirement for any commercial activity on either lot. It comes down to what is the parking required for the hotel? And that comes down to 5 spaces. And one of those spaces has to be an ADA van space, which they provided, and they need 2 more spaces off-site.
Okay, I got you. Thank you, Walt.
Okay. In fact, thank you for asking that question. Reminds me of the story of the professor after being asked the same question 4 times and responding, finally understood it. So thank you, Steve.
Okay, I haven't heard from Phil or John yet. Do either of you have questions? Or Bert, let me ask you, did we finish? Did we get through the end of
Yes,
your
I'm
list?
finished with my questions.
Okay, thanks. John or Phil?
I don't have anything else at this point, other than the concern about the parking issue. And that's going to be a tough one to meet. So we'll see how that turns out.
What about you, Phil?
I do have some questions, Karen. If the properties are sold either to one individual investor or 2 investors, does the easement for the parking pass with the sale?
It would have to for that to maintain its the parking requirements are a requirement. So yes, it would have to.
Yeah,
be
that's
along
what
the
that's what I'm concerned about. Okay. I noticed that the alley or the common ingress egress to the property is 10 feet wide Was this checked with any of the services that are potentially going to be required at this site, like ambulance, garbage, delivery, etc.?
Sorry, I heard ambulance. What were the other two?
Garbage and delivery of provisions.
Yes, the delivery of provisions is fine. We had a pre-app, and I don't recall if I don't think the fire department's able to attend. So we don't know about if there is an extra requirement for the ambulance access. Eric, maybe you could speak to that in a second if you can think of one. But our discussion with other utility services, such as garbage, was that they would be brought to the street for the garbage trucks to pick up. And then for propane, we did go through an extensive kind of conversation with them, several phone calls to make sure that the propane tanks could be filled for the, sorry, I'm jumping to the next lot too, but for the restaurant portion.
So I'm assuming that they're not going to drive down that common ingress egress. They're going to fill the propane tanks through the use of a hose. And am I to assume that the refuse containers are going to be the small ones that are going to be on wheels and wheeled out to the sidewalk area? Is that,
correct?
am I right in that?
Mm-hmm. That's
okay. Are the refuse containers for the lot 4 stored in the lot 3 area? Because I didn't see a spot for corralling refuse, etc.
Wait, 1 second. The intent was to keep it on site, on that same site. So if there is not something clearly labeled on the plans, we can note that would be a requirement as well.
So to understand you correctly, I'm assuming then that provision for the refuse containers will be on lot 4?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. On drawing A2 10A, can you tell me what type of cooking equipment is going to be provided in room R001?
Oh, retail 001. There won't be any cooking elements. Currently, it's planned to be like a soft serve machine or something similar. So nothing that would be like hot cooking that would require a hood or any other requirements like that.
Okay, so then there will not be any exterior mechanical equipment located on the outside of the building. Is that correct?
Nothing that would at the street level. Any mechanical equipment that we have we'd be pulling it back and trying to hide it away from the street.
Okay, thank you. Drawing A211A, the roof deck material, area 100. What is used under the composite wood decking to waterproof that?
Eric, you were just detailing this a little bit. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, we're doing a TPO roof. And above that, we will have I'm sorry, PT sleepers, and then we'll have our decking on top of that, which is
okay. So you're going to have a waterproof membrane, then you're going to have sleepers, and then you're going to have the deck material. Okay. While we're on this particular area, has there been a determination as to how many occupants can be on that area?
It'll be less than 50, so it'll be 49 max.
49 max?
On the roof deck.
Well, two things concern me. One is noise. And two is if a fire breaks out in the lower portion of the building, you've only got one way to get down off of that deck area, and that's that outside stair.
Yeah, so per the OSSC, you are allowed one exit with under 49.
Well, I'm kind of envisioning this catastrophe happening at night, and you've got 49 people who are trying to go down a stair with just a couple of lights showing the way down the steps. Okay. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else from the commission have comments or questions? Let me check my procedure here. I want to make sure we get everything in properly. I believe at this point we open it to persons in the audience who wish to speak in favor of the proposed development.
Okay, Karen, at this time I have one hand up. It's Matt Gray, and I'm not sure if he's in favor of or opposed to, but I'll unmute him and he can let us know.
Okay.
Okay, Matt, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hello, all. Thank you for being here. As I stated in the introductions, I'm one of 4 co-owners of the property immediately west toward the ocean from this site. I have 2 things. One, we've talked about dealing with the water catchment, stormwater, et cetera. Just want to make certain that you're aware the water table is at 4 feet right there. 10 years ago, when we rehabbed our commercial property next door, more commonly known as Finisterre, we ran into water at 4 feet, maybe a little under 4 feet when we did the required super, tsunami safe signage. And then also just really thinking a lot about that gated side space, which is immediately adjacent to us along our fence. Those are my questions for the time being.
All right, thanks, Matt. And
Anybody
Karen,
else? Yep.
I do not have any other hands raised.
Okay, then we
Oh,
should.
a correction. Donna Miller just raised her hand. Do you want to take in favor of or opposed, or do you just want to take all the comments right now?
Well, it doesn't sound like there's a herd of people. So yeah, I think we could just take any comments that people have. But
Okay.
do limit yourselves to 3 minutes, please.
Yep, I'm timing it for you. Okay, Donna, you're next.
Okay, I just wanted to comment on the parking. I know that's something that they're going to have to address to provide some more spaces. But what I'm also concerned about is if there's not a space for the people that are coming to clean the places, etc. If you look at where Sunset Vacation Rentals is, which is now Vacasa, that sidewalk is constantly blocked by cars of cleaners or people running in, and they park on the sidewalk because the whole driveway is blocked. So I just want to make sure that we're really looking at parking as before anything's okayed. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Donna. And it looks like that's all the hands I had raised, Karen.
Okay. I'm going to give 30 more seconds to people who want to comment. And make sure we get everybody. And while we're waiting for that, Scott, have we received any letters?
Karen, no, I have not received any emails or letters.
Okay. Okay.
It looks like that's all the hands. I have no more hands raised.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any applicant want to respond to any of the points that were made?
Yeah, I guess first Mark, or sorry, Matt, right? Was it Matt Gray? I apologize. I'll double check his name, make sure I got that.
Yeah, it was Matt.
Gray, I apologize. Matt, thank you for, the comment about the water table, is definitely something we're well aware of. We did study the soils and talk to our civil and landscape designers about this a lot to make sure that we're picking things that are designing the building based around that water table and understanding what it would mean. So we've been well aware of that. And I do appreciate you mentioning it though, and recognizing that it is a challenge of these sites that are a little bit lower. And then what's happening at the property next door, or the space between. I mean, I think that there was a couple of questions about that too. And we understand that you have a power service as well that's coming from that power pole, and understanding how that we can really navigate and make sure that that's accessible for the utility company and for you guys if there were ever a need to get back there. I think that's something that the owner would be open to a conversation about, down the road too, as business goes on and things move forward.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I think Matt.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sorry, I think I cut you off.
No, I was just saying, please continue.
Okay. Yep. And then we'll, again, the parking, we'll make sure and we'll review the processes that'll be in place for that to mitigate against any sort of like blocking of sidewalks that shouldn't be occurring in order to maintain that public right of way area, keep it free from vehicles to be where they should be and where they not where they shouldn't be.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to close the public comment portion of the discussion. And at
Karen,
this time, yeah,
Matt raised his hand one more time before we
Okay.
close it. I'm gonna go ahead and let him unmute.
thank you.
Matt, you should be able to unmute.
Thank you all. And Bob and Eric, I know, have you ever met a town of 700 people that is so engaged with these things? Just one note, carry back to the owner developers. It would have been nice if they were part of this.
Brody, yeah, one of the developers, sorry, I know that these meetings are planned, and one of the developers, he is actually on an airplane right now, so he's unable to attend, and he is apologetic for not being able to be here. Brody is on the call. He is owner's representative as well. He's one of the owners of Steeplejack. And
okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
Okay, Karen, that looks like we have no more hands raised now.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad that you caught me there, Scott. Okay, I am now going to close the public comment portion of this discussion and will invite discussion by the commission. Commission members may ask questions of the applicant, audience members, or staff, but we are now to the point where discussion will be limited primarily to commission members. And with that, we are getting close to 6 o'clock already, and we've got another hearing to do today. So I want to make a suggestion that, in my opinion, there were several elements that should have been part of this package. And I am wondering if we should consider continuing, I hate to do this to you guys, but continuing this hearing to a date certain so that you can respond to some of the questions that were where you're still in discussion with the owner about things, so that when we have an approval to give, we know exactly what we're looking at. Design review is pretty specific. We're looking at the way the building looks and feels. And if we don't have a full picture of the way the building looks and feels, we have to add too many conditions to the approval. For example, fencing in the back, signage, where the signage is located, how it's going to be illuminated, all of those kind of things. You don't have to have the specific named on what things are going to say on the sign, but tell us where they're going to be. Tell us how it's going to look in front of the building. And show us where the screening is and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to suggest that, and other commission members may want to further this conversation, but I hope that you have enough direction from us to come back and say, give us a finished product. Any objection to that?
Can I speak to that really quick? I would
Please.
like to point out that on our architectural site plan sheet A100, A1.00A, we do note that there is a 6-foot tall horizontal cedar privacy fence located at the back of the lot.
Thank you. I didn't see that.
Mhm. And I would hate to postpone it just strictly for that signage portion. I mean, I think that is, if there are other comments that are outstanding, we can talk about those as well.
My screen is frozen. Yeah. There's also an issue of 2 more parking spaces. And it doesn't seem right that we should condition your approval on that. It seems that we should be able to have all that information at the time we make an approval. That's my opinion. Anybody else, please feel just free to speak up if you want to have. One of my mentors told me that if we have too many conditions to an approval, that what we have is an incomplete package. And I want to just check in with the commission and see, do we have too many conditions to approve this? And if we do, then we may need more information. If you're willing to have a lot of conditions of approval, then please speak up and let's move forward. Go ahead, John.
I agree with you, Karen. It is a little bit vague at this point, and I'm really concerned about that parking because I can only think of one place you're going to get those other 2 spots, which is the building to the west of you. And another concern is we don't have an owner present for this project. So some of the answers are a little vague, and they can't help but being vague because only the owner could answer them. So if we continue this meeting, it would be a great idea to have an owner present at the next hearing.
Hey guys, I don't know if I'm still on mute, but this is Brody Day. I'm co-owner and I've been here the whole time. I'm happy to answer any questions. I want to make sure I'm following the right decorum of the meeting and respectful of the process. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have, and so I just want to let you know I'm here and I'm fully engaged in the meeting. So.
Well,
If
one
you can hear
question
that.
I've got is, have there been any discussions with any adjacent businesses about the parking situation, about getting the other 2 spaces?
John, quite candidly, we just learned about this parking issue just a couple of weeks ago. So we're navigating that, and we're understanding the code, but this totally caught us off guard. And in our interpretation, excuse me, of the code, this caught us completely off guard. So we've just started these discussions, and we wanted to proceed with this hearing to understand what other concerns there are. I heard some signage questions, water remediation, all of the work that we put into the development of this site in collaboration with feedback from the community and just wanting to do something really cool and neat for the Manzanita community has went into this. And so I understand the serious concerns that some of the committee members have regarding the parking, but we do too. So we just learned about this and we're navigating that. So, but if there's other questions aside from the parking, I'm happy to answer those. Whether it's stained glass, whether it's letting the cedar naturally weather, water remediation, landscape planning. If there's things that you guys feel strongly about seeing, like more lighting on egress pathing, we're happy to do that. So we want this to be a collaborative effort, but without knowing exactly what you guys are asking of us, it's challenging.
Karen, I have a question. This thing about the hotel and the short-term rental, did we get that resolved? Do we know what they are doing here and how the hotel is going to be operated?
From what I understand, the owner has to comply with the Oregon State and Tillamook County requirements for a hotel. And if they can't do that, then there isn't much that we can do with that property. So, and to tell you the truth, I'm very concerned that for most of this project, that most of the drawings, it's shown as Airbnb, which means short-term rental. And it sounds like you may have heard that we had problems with another hotel property, and I shouldn't ascribe your thought process, but to call it a hotel instead of short-term rentals, this is my feeling, is that people are constantly trying to get around the short-term rental regulations by calling it something else. And I'm not sure that that's fair to the citizens of Manzanita to do. So Walt has said that one of the conditions is that you have to comply with all of the requirements for a hotel. We have no way of knowing that you've complied with those requirements and will continue to comply with those requirements because we don't ever see your correspondence with Tillamook County. And that's a major concern that I have, that what you're really doing is an Airbnb. And we have, there's an ownership problem that you're going to run into that you should be aware of if you're not already. If you can't operate it as a hotel, or for some reason you stop, then you've got a problem on your hands. And I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. So yeah, I mean, the only requirement that we can give in our commercial review and a design review is to say that you comply with all the regulations. There's no way for us to check to see whether you have.
Karen, if I could just jump in real quick, that was actually a condition that I insisted be included in the findings. And I will say that the county is excellent at ensuring that businesses that are permitted through their agencies are in compliance. And we're actually in pretty frequent contact. I am personally with Jamie Craig, who heads up that program. So I'm not disagreeing with your what you're saying, but I did include that in the findings because the county they're on it. And so if they are licensed through the county, then the county is on top of that and ensuring that they are meeting those requirements.
Okay, thank you. And does that help answer was that Steve? Was that your question?
Yes, thank you, Karen.
Okay. Okay, any further discussion by the commission? Let me put it this way, are you ready to make a decision on this property, on this project?
Karen, let me ask a question here. What do we still have open? The signage and the parking? Was there anything else?
There were some design elements that weren't particularly clear. And since we're doing a design review, they weren't particularly clear in my mind. You might be satisfied. But there were some questions about whether some things would be included or not included. Let me mute myself for just a second here. Sorry. Okay, can you hear me again?
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had a barking dog problem. All done now. Yeah, I think I was saying just there are some design elements that I'm not satisfied with. Your mileage may vary, and if you're ready to make a decision, then still have a barking dog problem. Then we should proceed with the determination.
Well, if we're going to continue it, we should have some kind of list for these people to address and then come back with.
Anybody else? Or do you want to put that in the form of a motion?
Karen, this is Bert. I would make a motion that we continue the meeting until a future specified date to address to be sure that the parking problems, potential parking problems of the plan are addressed satisfactorily. And the stained glass doors are better, more clearly defined in terms of color and geometric patterns, and that how the cedar siding will be treated or not treated and allowed to weather naturally. I think that's a very important question.
Okay.
In my experience, this is sort of a side note, the cedar, when left exposed in one direction, will weather in one manner, in another, in a 90-degree angle in another direction, will weather in another manner. And sometimes that isn't highly, you don't get a very desirable effect from that. But it would be good if the applicant could address at least whether or not whether the wood would receive any finishing or just be left raw to weather naturally.
And could I add to your list, Bert, that there is some effort to describe how 50% of the landscaping in living plant material is located near the front, at the front of the property, or at least is visible from Lanita. There's, planter boxes or whatever is going to be, that those be shown on the plans and described.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay.
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 Karen, may I just interrupt here briefly? I just want the Planning Commission to be aware that we are day 36 of the 120 day, and continue it to October would be day 53. So I'm not saying it's fatal, but just bear that in mind as commissioners.
Yeah. Okay. Bert, you made a motion, is that correct?
Yes.
To continue. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you, John. Any further discussion?
Should we pick a date? Should that be part of the decision at this point?
Let me ask the people who know these things, Layla or Walt.
I believe it's October 17th at 4 p.m.
That is correct.
Does it have to be delayed that long?
You are welcome to meet earlier. I mean, that's a decision the commission can make, recognizing we only have one meeting
That's the question I'm asking the commission right now.
I could meet sooner than that. I don't know how staff time, how much they've got going on to prepare, and how long it's going to take the applicant to provide new materials.
Well, I'd like to hear from the applicant, and staff can work around whatever is best.
I mean, I think that some of them could be addressed on the call today with the owner present, but I think that other items that may need a little bit longer is going to I think it would probably be a week of time before we'd be ready to meet again. So we can meet as early as next, probably, well, Eric, what do you think? Does next week work? Or 2 weeks?
Oh, I
I
think it
think
depends on if
we would want at least to review.
Staff would definitely need a time to review that, and our reports are required to be done 1 week prior to a meeting.
Understood.
Yep, and the third, just so folks know, is there's an outreach event happening on the 3rd in the evening, which is 2 weeks from today. So that would not work for us. It doesn't have to be on a Monday. It could be on a Tuesday. So the applicant would need to provide all the information to staff. If, say, we were to meet on October 4th, we'd need all that information by the 27th. Well, probably sooner. Well, probably the Friday before. So, because Walt will need time to update that staff report and put it together in time. So that starts really pushing us into the week of October 10th, which is just a week earlier than the other planning commission meeting. So when we start having meetings that close together, that does become pretty burdensome for us and for noticing and for that sort of thing. If we are not planning to have a planning commission meeting in October, then having one on the 10th would be, I think, doable.
Do we, Scott, do we have anything on the agenda for October yet?
As of now, Karen, I don't have anything on the agenda for October. Let me look at one thing. Yeah, I don't have any applications that would actually make it to the October meeting, so we could continue this to October.
Okay.
Why don't we just go ahead and plan on the 17th then, since that's our next meeting.
Okay, now we also need to do the hearing on the second piece. Shall we continue this meeting for another hour today? I don't want to get too many motions confused, but at least that way we'll have a head start on it. So do you want, let me just put it this way, should we do on early, which would be October, what did you say, Layla? The 11th, is that it? Or the 4th?
Well, I think if we're going to have the meeting earlier, my recommendation would be to do it on the 10th. Staff also have to prepare for city council on the 5th. And so that's a big lift for us to do 2 meetings in 1 week. So that would be my suggestion, or you just have it on your normal October 17th date, just all of us being cognizant of where we are with the 120-day clock.
Okay, I would leave that to the applicant then. If either date is.
Also, Karen, one other note you mentioned about the other case, the only way that we can continue that would be to at least open the next case and make a vote on the continuation. These are 2 separate applications.
Okay, thanks. Bob, did you want to go to the 10th or the 17th? What do you have strong preference either way?
I am out of town on the 17th, so Eric from our office may be able to attend and take point on that. So 10th, I think that we can make either work. We'll need to, I know that the parking isn't something that's under consideration here. And I want to talk to Rhodey about that as well and see if we can drum up some leads on parking.
So you don't have a strong preference either way, or?
Don't have a strong preference either way.
Okay, so should we just say our regular meeting on the 17th then, since it's on the schedule and staff is ready for that?
I think that probably is best too, so the public can also just be aware and know that's our typical meeting time.
Okay. Okay. Yes, Phil. You're muted. Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
I wanted to ask a question. I don't have too many issues for lot number 3. It seems to me that it would be fair to the applicant and to the owner if we could go through lot 3, and that way then he knows, or they know what may or may not be required for lot 3, so that this gets hopefully resolved in the next meeting. To postpone a hearing on lot 3 until the next time runs the risk of not being able to approve lot 3 because of some technicality.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good point. It just means we're here for another hour tonight. But yeah, I agree. I think that's the fair thing to do, would be to air the grievances, get them all out, and then hopefully have an approval on that tonight. So I just want to restate, it's been moved and seconded that we continue this hearing to October 17th to so that the applicant can address the list of items that Bert and I'm pretty sure the record kept track, the video recording, and Walt, I imagine you probably took notes as well. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we'll continue to the 17th. Okay. Do we need a short break? 3-minute, 5-minute break? Or should we just keep going?
I need a break.
Break? Okay.
3
We'll be
minutes.
back at 6:02. We'll be back at 6:07.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I have never heard of in my entire life. Music, person is yes, you can hardly understand what he's Is everybody back that needs to be back?
There we go.
Okay, are we all back? Scott, are you here?
Yeah, yes, Karen, I'm here.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure somebody was in control of this Zoom business. It's 6:08 in the afternoon. And this is the time and place set for the hearing in the matter of a design review application for the east side of 220 Lanita, Lot 3, Block 14, Manzanita Beach subdivision by Harder Holdings Coastal LLC. Excuse me. The hearing is now open. The decision to deny or approve this request will be based on the design review standards listed in the same sections as before, 4080, 4090, 4.137 through 4.156, and the commercial zone standards in section 3.040 of ordinance 95-4. The specific criteria are summarized in the staff report and will be reviewed at this hearing. All testimony and evidence must be directed toward this approval criteria or other criteria in the zoning ordinance which you believe may apply. Please note in their decision, the Planning Commission may reject comments or ordinance citations that do not directly apply to the request. Note that an issue which may be the basis for an appeal to LUBA must be raised not later than the close of record at or following the final evidentiary hearing of this case. Such issues must include specific statements or evidence that allow the commission and those in attendance an adequate opportunity to respond. This case will proceed with the applicant's presentation, followed by the staff report, followed by those in favor and those opposed to the application. Commission staff and participants may direct questions to those who testified. And finally, the applicant is entitled to a rebuttal. Again, I'm going to request that people avoid repetition. If someone has already expressed your same thoughts, please concur, and then we'll move on. If you send a written response to the proposal, please don't repeat your comments. They're already part of the record. Prior to the conclusion of the first hearing on a land use application, a participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence or testimony regarding the application. If such a request is made, it's up to the commission to determine if the hearing will be continued to a date and time certain, or if the record will be kept open for submission of additional evidence or testimony. If the record is kept open, it will be for a minimum of 7 days with a short rebuttal period thereafter afforded to the applicant. In this case, oh dear, I've got bad information in here. Okay. Okay, so we need to first ask the audience if they are any objections to the notice that was sent in this case.
And I do not have any hands raised at this time, Karen.
Okay, and if there are any objections to the jurisdiction of this body to hear and consider this case?
And I still have no hands raised at this time.
Okay, then we should ask if there are any declarations of conflict or bias by any members of this body. I will start with Phil today.
No conflict of interest, no bias, no ex parte contact, and I have visited the site.
Okay, thank you. Steve? Oh, I'm sorry, Steve, you're muted.
I've had no contact, not biased, there's no conflict of interest, and I visited the location.
Okay, John?
No contact, no bias. What's the other one?
No conflict of interest.
No conflict of interest, and I visited the site.
Okay, how about you, Bert?
I have no conflict of interest. I have not had any ex parte contact. I have no bias, and I have visited the site.
And for my part, I have also visited the site. I have had no ex parte contact. I have no conflict of interest, and I have no bias. Yeah, I guess, are there any members of the audience who want to challenge any member of the commission to hear this based on actual or possible conflict of interest or bias?
Karen, I have no hands raised at this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let us move on to the hearing on the B project, a restaurant on lot 3, the east property. And would the applicant like to give an overview of this development?
I would, thank you. Property is, this is lot 3, 220 Lanita Avenue. We're familiar with this now. I'll see if I can share my screen again and walk you through it. The project is a restaurant. I want to note, just as it was in the staff report as well, but just want to note for clarity's sake that this is the client is Steeplejack Brewing Company. It is a restaurant only, though. There is no brewing functions happening on site. So this is the front facing the street from the rendering provided with the with our design review documents. The approach here, we have forward facing dining on the ground floor. We're trying to really concentrate activity on the street front presence. We have a roof deck up above as well. Again, we're focusing the pedestrian oriented, more like commercial friendly uses and like aspects of the business on the front side, with things like kitchen and service in the back. The existing property has 2 existing structures on the site, which are old residences that are no longer in use, and they will be removed as a part of the project and demolished. It's worth bringing that up for everyone's reference as well. On the site itself, we have a shared access easement for this driveway that comes down here. We have the back of house. We are utilizing the existing topography of the site, which is fairly steep, about 10 foot of drop from the northeasternmost corner of the site at the sidewalk down to the lowest portion in the southwest corner. Using that existing topography rather than filling the whole thing, we've looked at utilizing that for tucking a small storage area underneath with some of the coolers for the business for the restaurant side. And then again, as if you'll recall, for the adjacent lot has a shared parking lot easement here for the hotel use. The entrance to the restaurant is again centered and facing the street. We have an egress court in the back for a secondary egress stair upstairs from the roof deck. The actual restaurant itself from here, I'm sure. Can everyone see my screen just to make sure we're not having similar issues? Thank you. The basement is down here has those utility functions, building access, a crawl space. The upstairs and main level, which would be at street level, but slightly up, but we have located the access to the site over here on the northeastern side to enter into the site. We have the dining space with a front facing bar, so there's good activity visible from the street. A fireplace on the interior, restrooms tucked behind, and then the kitchen is located in the back with like a convenience access outside from there. The idea there would be that traffic from the kitchen would not be interrupting diners or going out to the front in order to get down and access anything that they may need from just downstairs in storage. The kitchen is planned to have largely like basically designed to minimize trips up and down those stairs out the back that go down into that storage area. So it's intended to keep it all mostly up here. The upstairs area is a roof deck and second story restaurant with tables and chairs up there as well, with a staircase connecting it internally and a outside egress stair only out the back that connects down to the egress court, bringing you back up to the northeast corner of the site. We do have some plantings up at the front, and as well as pedestrian kind of focus like tables and chairs and utilizing that setback to create more pedestrian space that is akin, similar to other businesses on the street as well. I think that's all I have right now. Eric, did you have any follow-ups for that?
Nope.
Okay, Walt, would you give us your report, please?
Okay, thank you. This time we're looking at lot 3, which is adjacent to lot 4. Applicant provided a summary of what is being proposed. I will note for the record, this is also in the C1 zone, and restaurants and lounges, etc., are definitely allowed within the zone. So this is permitted subject to a design review. Again, the beginning of the commercial zone talks about the minimum sort of development requirements. I'll just briefly run through those. The building does meet the minimum setback requirements with regard to the yards based on building official review. Also meets the height limitation. They comply with the landscaping requirements. There are no extensions, roof extensions, etc., that violate sidewalk coverings or marquee information. The applicants, as noted, are using the slope as part of their drainage program. And the floor area ratio here is 0.618, which does not exceed the 0.65 requirement. The first thing we need to look at is parking at the site. I'm not going to repeat what we discussed in the last one. Again, note that because of the size of the site and its location in the zone, actually the size of the site, there are 0 parking requirements for the restaurant. The parking on the site through an easement or agreement is basically for the adjacent hotel. This proposal complies with the need for the site plan review. I'll note that there will be limited fill to develop the site. There are no parking structures in the front yard. And while there are some trees on the site, they will be removed as part of the development, and they will be replaced with additional plantings on the perimeter. With regard to the actual development here, the section 4.150 seeks to determine whether a proposal maintains the characteristics of the community. Again, I'd like to note the building size and allowable area comply with our development requirements. The building is also distinctly designed to have interaction between customers and adjacent pedestrians. So in other words, it faces the street and has interaction with the street. All those facilities that are not part of that are really on the lower floor areas such as kitchen functions, utilities, etc. They're on the back side of the building, not visible by the public along Manzanita. This application also is consistent. This application review is consistent with the requirements, and also the procedures we're following are consistent with code requirements. The first thing we're looking at in terms of the design, their design criteria is in section 4.155. There are 5 items under consideration. Similar to the other project, this does create a visually interesting project. Again, has the frontage and the sort of look of the development out on the street, complies with all the setback requirements of the code. The building, there is an existing natural slope on the building. They work with that slope to create the design. As noted, existing structures will be removed. The site has minimal features such as rocks or vegetation that can't be saved. Additional plantings will occur along the east and south property lines to improve aesthetics and provide screening. Item 3 is the design relates or integrates proposed landscaping open space to adjacent spaces. Again, the front contains a patio. Plantings allows outdoor dining during favorable times of the year. This patio and improvements, again, connect the restaurant to the sidewalk and pedestrians. Access is located at the northeast corner of the lot and where the sloping is less steep and makes favorable and easy access to the structure. Item 4, design gives attention, placement of storage, mechanical equipment. As noted, this would be on the lower floor and behind the frontage of the building along Luneta. Item 5, functions and uses are arranged to reflect and harmonize with natural characteristics. Again, they did incorporate the site within the storm drainage, if you will, slope management to incorporate the storm drainage. They are also replacing a lot of providing new landscaping to replace existing vegetation. Section 1.56 contains criteria for architectural design. Again, I think we find that this is a unique building. I don't think it's a jarring exception from existing structures. Again, the applicant is using vertical red cedar siding. There will be a small metal roof, corrugated metal will not be in the design. And again, like other buildings along Luneta, connects the entrance, if you will, to the public. Regarding landscaping, again, they are using native Oregon plants and also will incorporate that within the drainage system. I noted earlier that to meet the landscaping requirements, under item 5, they are using grading and contouring of the site to incorporate within their storm drainage system, and they did submit those calculations. The building does have 3 levels, and it does create some visual interest. I think of this is also enhanced by the indoor and outdoor seating component. Lighting is non-industrial in design, again, like the adjacent building. Look mainly in doorways and sidewalks and down facing. I think overall this building is compatible with adjacent structures. And the building does comply with the height limitations and FAR restrictions. I just think in general, this design avoids creating a single monolithic structure by the use of canopy, material changes, eaves, upper story setbacks, and an open patio on the street level. I think on balance, the improvement is consistent with the intent of the design standards. So with that, staff recommends that this application be approved, subject to the conditions noted in the staff report. That concludes the report.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the commissioners to either the applicant or the staff? Go ahead, Bert.
I have a question that it's similar to one brought up in the prior hearing about the egress from the restaurant areas, I guess, in case of a fire. And I guess the question for the applicant is, have capacities been set for these dining areas, and also the perhaps the roof, the second story area outside for so that people can get out of the place in case of a fire. I guess there are standards that somebody someplace has established for this. And the specific question is, has this been reviewed by another outside authority to have the capacity, the people capacity, and the capacity of the stairways and ramps and other parts of the structure? Are they adequate for the capacity of the building?
So I can speak to that, Bert. We have done all the calculations on the building. On the first floor of the restaurant, we are over 50 occupants, and we require 2 exits. So we have 2 exits on the north side. We are fully sprinklered, so they're more than 1/3 distance apart. On the second floor, again, we have more than 50 occupants. That's including the roof deck. And we have 2 exits up there, one going down the main stair and out, and then one going out the back to the exterior stair in the back on the south side. And then that goes to an egress court to the right of way. The roof deck is 49 occupants, and similar to the roof deck, I guess we're just talking about this site, but so if you're under 49 occupants, you can do 1 exit. So the roof deck has 1 exit. But as soon as you get into the restaurant itself, then you have 2 means of egress, and that meets OSSC code.
And who is the authority that approves those numbers? Is that the state?
That would be reviewed by the city of Manzanita, and I think they're going to go through the code. You have to remind me, Walter, what their name is, but Code Pros. So they'll be reviewing it, but it will all meet the OSSC 2019 code.
The applicant has to meet both the building requirements, and those are also reviewed by the fire district.
But that hasn't been done yet.
Well,
that occurs at permit stage.
Exactly, because again, as you know, part of the process, there might be modifications to the layout, or et cetera. And that's why we require, as one of the conditions, they get the building permits that comply with the requirements as well as any fire district standards.
Okay. If it's found that the building has to undergo some modifications, the plan has to be modified in order to meet these restrictions. That could affect the design appearance of the outside of the building.
Correct. It will come back to you with a modified design. They have to comply with their proposal. If it requires modifications or changes, they will need to resubmit.
Okay. So we are essentially approving what we see on the drawings now with the provision that we will be required to review any changes that change that appearance of the outside of the building.
That is correct, sir.
Additional stairways or ramps or whatever.
That is correct, sir.
Is that the end of your questions, Bert, or did you have more?
That's it for now. Yes.
Okay, John, what about you?
Oh, question for Walt on the staff report under recommendations and conditions of approval. Item C2, install parking improvements consistent with approved building and engineering plans. What's that in reference to, Walt, since we don't need parking on this in this building?
There is a parking spaces that are part of the design. In other words, as Bert pointed out, they're providing you a design that includes the parking on this particular site. So that has to conform with engineering requirements that have to do with parking, space width, striping, etc.
But the parking's associated with the motel, right?
Absolutely agree. They still have it on their site plan. That is what they're proposing to the planning commission. And that's what they need to show along with submitted engineering plans, that it conforms to their proposal.
Okay, I understand now.
Any other questions, John?
No, that's it right now.
Okay, how about you, Phil? What do you got?
Couple of questions. On sheet A210D, can you explain to me what the floor to ceiling height is for the crawl space?
So and Eric may know more of the specific numbers on this one than I do, but the crawl space itself is, it steps up with the slope of the site there. So it is not going to be like carved out, fully excavated at all. It's going to be following the stepping of the site. So it's not intended to be occupiable space.
Okay, so let me approach it a different way. The foundation walls that are going to be poured to enclose the space, are they going down, clear down to the grade level that's shown on your section cut? I forget which drawing it is.
I can speak to that. Yeah, the walls will be going all the way down and following the grade, going north to south. And the footings will be below that grade.
But it,
Go ahead.
so a tenant in the future could dig that out, is that correct? He could dig out the crawl space and make it a larger space out of it, is that correct?
No, because the footings would be following the grade on the inside because we have.
That's what I was after. Okay, thank you. Can you tell me what kind of anchorage are you using on the, I'm on the same drawing, 210B. What anchors are you using for the steel posts 0503? It just shows the post going down there. What, you have a footing, a foundation, what do you have there?
We have spread footings down there. The exact anchorage, I'd have to defer to structural, but it is a spread footing.
Yeah, okay. I don't have the structural, I don't think, so I can't tell. Okay, on sheet A 2.12B, grid line M through N 4 through 5 and K through M 7 through 8. You have 2 1-hour shafts. Can you tell me what those are about?
Yeah, we have one for the kitchen to support the hood. The other one is a small shaft on the east side. Well, the kitchen shaft was on the south side. The one on the east side is a very small shaft for running plumbing up to the roof or vents. And then our third shaft is the fireplace, kind of on the north side of the building.
Correct.
And that will be they'll have propane inserts, and then that will again go up to vent.
Okay, thank you. Is the deck construction the same as lot 4?
Yep, exactly the same. Yep.
Thank you. I don't see an indication of a dumbwaiter to service anything going on in the upper floors. Is there not one included? Are you service people actually going to walk those trays and plates and stuff upstairs?
Yeah, they'll walk upstairs.
Okay.
There's no dumbwaiter.
Okay. We've already talked about the color scheme and the tinted windows, color of the trim, color of the roof. I think you just indicated to me that the fuel for the fireplace is propane.
Correct.
Is that an open fireplace or are there glass doors?
Inside or outside?
Really both.
I mean, there would be glass doors.
Okay. Karen, that's it for me.
Okay, how about you, Steve? You're gonna unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. I do have a couple of questions. You've got 3 propane tanks down on the ground level, and you got 1 propane tank on the east side, and they're going to be serviced from the street. Is that how you plan on doing that? And how much propane do you anticipate using? How often would you have deliveries of propane?
It would depend on use and based on the kitchen needs. So that we've already talked to the propane gas vendor about this. I'm blanking on the gentleman's name, but I know that we have had these discussions about frequency of fills and getting that calibrated. But it's typical for a restaurant, not atypical.
I imagine so. Can you get night deliveries? Lanita gets pretty busy. I can't imagine propane tanks coming up in the afternoon trying to service your tanks. And that'd be real.
Yeah, I mean, they do this for a living. I expect that they have they probably know the better time to go and fill it up than I would right now. But I know that we did talk about that too, and I did express that concern to the vendor about making sure that fills were not interrupting business or pedestrian traffic.
We would hope you'd be able to do that. How many employees do you expect to have?
Brody, I don't know if you're available to speak right now. Do you have an expectation?
Yeah, a lot of it is going to vary, of course, seasonally. As you guys know, we'll have more employees in the summertime than we will in the winter months, and a mixture of part-time employees and full-time employees. But we'd anticipate the neighborhood of 10 to 30 employees.
Well, we're having trouble with employees down here for restaurants. I wish you luck with that. You have a exhaust fan on the south side of the building. And do you know what the decibel level for that fan is for the neighbors to the south?
If you give me a minute, I can find the cut sheet. But you know, our intent is operations, and we haven't talked about hours of operation, but they would be complying with the curfew and the 10 p.m. kind of curfew time for noise that has to be less than 50 decibels after that. So hours of operation would be based on kind of conforming to that. So the kitchen would not be operational and the fan would not be exhausting at that time. I can, if you give me a minute, I can pull it up if you'd like me to find it.
I'm sure they'd appreciate it. While you're looking at it, Phil asked about a dumbwaiter to bring food to the upstairs, but how about the beer kegs down in the basement, bringing it upstairs? How are they getting up there?
There is a glycol system down there for the keg. There's a keg cooler. So there's actually a cooler that's dedicated for beer. So there'll be draft lines inside that go up through the bar to deliver beer. So kegs won't have to be brought up or down the stairs. They can use the ramp.
Oh, that's good. And so delivery for kegs and stuff, are that going to be coming down the alleyway there to have access to that? How are they going to get them out to the street?
Yeah, they would ramp it down the alley.
Okay. And I think I got one more question here. And garbage is going to be a big issue. So a restaurant, where are you going to put your garbage cans for pickup? Where are they going to be setting?
They'd bring them up to the street from the back, but they would be in the back during like typical business operations.
So they're placed on the street for pickup?
That would be coordinated with the trash company for the specific location. I don't have that.
Okay. No, just
look it up for a second. Hold on.
I'm not sure how the other restaurants and business need to place their garbage cans. I really don't know. I just kind of wonder because you're going to have several of them. And you talked the fire pits, and I think that's all I have there, Karen.
Okay. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Phil.
I'm sorry, I forgot one question. Looking at the exterior of the building, the elevations, I only saw the one exhaust fan that Steve mentioned. Are there any other mechanical pieces of equipment or vents that are not shown on the elevations that you would require for the operation?
There are some, and Eric, jump in if I forget anything, but the operationally, we have some of the equipment for the building in that crawl space, and there will be some vents on the west side facing towards that driveway. So there'd be louvered vents that would match the architectural metal on the project. So that darker gray charcoal trim.
Are they large in nature?
Not substantially so. I think they are. I don't have the drawing up in front of me, but I believe they're 24 inches by maybe 3 feet or 4 feet. And there's one, I know there's one horizontal one, and then there's another one that I believe is 24 by 24 inches.
What about the two mechanical shafts, or I guess 3 mechanical shafts that we talked about? Do they penetrate the roof line?
The plumbing vents would be like vent to roof style, where it's like a pipe that's exposed, but
Roof, like a roof jack for a residential?
yeah, I'm not too familiar with roof jacks, but that would be the case. The one that's more noticeable is that chimney sort of feature on the front, which will go up for the propane. But the others, yeah, the shaft on the south side for the kitchen exhaust is going to the south. It's going sidewalling out. It's not going up through the roof.
What determines the height of the chimney at the roof line?
So
Is there a code requirement for that?
There is, and we cannot go any higher than the 28'6", and it is aligned with the ridge of the roof. So it does not go higher than the max height in the.
But does it have to be a certain height and a certain distance away from the peak of the roof in order for it to draft properly? Well, I guess you're using propane, so you won't have any smoke anyway.
Exactly to your point, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Thanks, Phil. I just have a couple of questions. Again, probably the same questions I have on the other projects, but generally speaking, the color scheme will match the other building. So you'll have the dark red metal roof, charcoal gray or black metal trim on the doors and handrails and that kind of stuff. Is that correct? And the same kind of glass, I don't know what you call them. What the heck do you call them? The handrails, they're glass. It's basically the same look and feel as the other building. Is that correct?
Correct. I think one clarification. Did you say red roof?
Yep.
And I apologize if maybe the audio cut out previously, but it's gray. So the metals on the project would match. So the roof would match the gray as well.
Okay. So yeah, I had heard red.
No. So and that's consistent with the rendering that we provided as well, the color of the roof. And we'll have to remind me if I forget one, but yes, like railings, the character of the building is consistent. We're playing into the village character, trying to reference materials that are local and already in the existing downtown area in terms of the vertical or like just the cedar siding using that wood. The glass railing with that aluminum kind of metal accents and guard on it would be consistent as well.
Okay. And there's also a potential for, I think you said maybe some of the stained glass looking features on this one?
Not on this one, no.
Okay, on the drawing, they appear. Well, I guess that's inside. Never mind, that's inside.
Yeah, we're hinting at interior decor, but it's not an exterior feature.
Okay, and then how much of the living, how many square feet or what percentage is living plant material on the street facing side of the building?
I'm pulling up the drawing right now to look. I know that we focused it on the, I don't know if we called out a specific percentage, but we did calculate up the total square footage provided in terms of like the planting areas, the front and back. And that's shown on L 1.01B. We have a planting area in the front with, and then as well as there's another vine maple there in the front as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because those aren't shown on your renderings on the front, the projected buildings. So there's no visible plants anywhere in that. So I think that's why I'm confused by this, but so essentially there will be a planter box in the front of this, and that's it for living plant material in the front is a planter box.
A planter box, yeah, there's a planter box flanking the entry to the site. I can show on the screen. So this is the rendering you're mentioning, and you correctly noted that the we're not showing that correct.
Dead and dry, no plants.
Correct, and they would be there. It would be there. So here, I can show you on the landscape drawing. So the visual representation didn't show it, but this one does show it accurately, that there would be like an entry into the site with that vine maple and a planter box there, or it's a built-in planter.
Okay. And what is the material that the patio is made of in the front there?
The patio at grade would be concrete.
Okay. Okay. And I'm also a little concerned about the vent out the back. How far away is the vent on the south side of the house from the property line?
I will measure it for you right now.
Because there are homes back there. I know you mentioned that, everything is screened from Lanita, but you got a 4-dimensional property, so concerned about the people who are going to be living back there.
It's 45 feet away from the property line.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, well, just general comment. Well, I'll wait to do my general comments. Any other questions from the commissioners?
I do have one question, Karen.
Yep.
The driveway coming up from the parking to the street, does it level off before it reaches the street so that there's clear sight vision? Or is it graded, still slope going up all the way up to the sidewalk? I saw that one drawing. It appeared to me that it might have leveled off a bit so they have clear sight.
Good question.
Yeah, I was looking at the civil drawings right now to see the specific slope as noted. It does level off as it reaches the sidewalk, it appears to. But I guess it's made to meet the grade. And traffic is going to be very minimal coming in and out of this. And we thinking about that as well with the width of that driveway being not super generous. The idea is that it does slow down the traffic innately as they move through it. So our intent, and knowing that it's a small lot dedicated only for that hotel next door, it's really just to where should be minimal traffic coming in and out of it.
And there's line of sight. We've got the poured walls, and I'm not sure what the material is on the other building that's that sides the driveway, but they look like they should be able to get clear line of sight coming out of there without going into a tunnel.
Right. Well, it does. So the seating area outdoor in front of the restaurant, like it is stepped up a little bit, but we do have those glass railings, which really help with creating that visual kind of perspective and connection from people who are going up that driveway. So they're the sight lines there would be visible, and you would be able to kind of cut through the corner with your vision line to see through it.
Okay, good. Any other questions from the commission?
just that sight line, I'm concerned about the cars parked there, sometimes campers parked there. It's going to be a very difficult situation for people to get out there onto the street. Just something to be aware of.
Okay. Are there any persons in the audience who wish to speak in favor of this project?
Karen, at this time, I do not have any hands raised.
Okay. Are there any comments from the public in opposition to the development? Or I guess we should just say general comments or questions.
And Karen, I still do not have any hands raised.
Okay. Have we received any letters on this side of the development?
And no letters have been received for either one of these projects.
Okay. Bob, do you have any other comments or responses you want to make before we close the comment period?
Just briefly, we did have a chance to talk to the owner a little bit about the siding, knowing that this would be in potentially something else that comes up as well on this one, in terms of the finish level and that look. And we will be providing a sealer on it as a finish. I perhaps misspoke on the last round when we talked about it. But there will be a sealed finish, and the goal will be to try to maintain that as time goes on.
Okay, great. Thank you. That helps. Okay. I will now close the, did I hear somebody say something? Okay. I will close the public comment portion of this discussion and will invite discussion among the commission. You may ask questions of the applicant, audience members, or staff, but we are now at the point where the discussion will be limited primarily to commission members. Any comments? Well, I'll just throw mine out there. I would like to really compliment you on this design. I think it's forward-looking. It doesn't exactly fit in with what we have in Manzanita, but it fits. You've included enough elements to make it a nice-looking building. I think that you'll have a lot of success here. I think this is a good town for a good beer-oriented restaurant. I appreciate all the work that you've gone in, that has gone into this. I just would really request that you pay attention to all of the things that we require in a design review. It's a little bit different than a building plan review because we're here as guardians of the public trust. And people are concerned about how things look and feel in Manzanita. And I think you've done my opinion is it's a very good job, and I appreciate it very much. Any other comments or questions from the commission? Anybody have any feelings how you want to lean one way or the other on this?
Karen, I'm looking at the recommendations and conditions, and I don't, based on the discussion, I don't see there's anything we need to add to those unless somebody else does.
I would like to add what we just heard about the cedar having a finish on it to sort of protect the color of the wood. Unless that is contained someplace in the plan that we can reference. I didn't run across that.
Are you looking for a specific product or just?
No, just the fact that it will be sealed with a transparent sealer to protect or maintain the appearance of the natural appearance of the wood as much as possible.
And that is the intent. Yeah, we intend to use a clear sealer and maintain that over time.
And it will be maintained over time, I guess, if necessary.
It's the intent.
Yeah. So Karen, I guess I'd like to see that as an added condition if we get to that.
is a condition F. John or Phil, do you have any additions?
I'd like to pick up on Steve's comment with regards to the egress across the sidewalk from vehicles that are in those 3 parking spots. And it looks to me like if you were coming out of that spot with a vehicle that was other than an SUV, you might have trouble seeing pedestrian traffic coming from, I would say, the 3rd Street side. So if it's determined that some kind of a device needs to be provided with regards to warning pedestrians that a vehicle is exiting that site, that it be considered. Because I am concerned about, I know how busy that sidewalk gets, and I'm just very, very concerned about people trying to get off the property and having an altercation with a pedestrian that they can't see.
I guess I have another question as well. And that would be, where is the signage on this restaurant going to be located? And how
Yeah,
will it be
and
illuminated?
okay, sorry. Can I talk? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, I can tell you about that, and I'll show you on the drawing here. That was kind of discussed and planned for. I can show you. So, oop, where is that? Okay, so the signage on the elevation here, we're on sheet A3.01B, detail 1, north elevation. We're indicating here that this is, and I just drew it here for reference. Again, it would be within the 24 square foot requirement or maximum requirement for signage. We're only considering 1 sign on the building that would be here. And that would be the specific location of the sign.
And how would it be illuminated?
It would be illuminated by some direct illumination from above. So there's a small eyebrow canopy that would point down. So the light would be tucked in up there and only point towards the building and not shine off property.
Okay, great, thank you. And that's not shown on the elevation, or is it?
It's not included in that drawing
Okay.
as it is right now. I marked it up right now for the purposes of this discussion.
Thank you. I'd like to add that as another condition, I guess. I hate to add it as a condition, but just that you intend 1 sign on the front of the building. That meets the code. Anybody else? Anyone like to propose a motion? Is it too late in the day? I don't know, am I allowed to propose a motion as the chair?
Yes,
Oh, okay, I never have.
go ahead.
Okay, well, in that case, I would move that the planning commission approve the design review application by Harder Holdings for the Steeplejack Brewery Restaurant, adopting modified findings to the decision criteria and conditions of approval with the following modified language. And that would be Bert's recommendation that the wood be sealed and maintained with a clear sealer. And my suggestion that that the restaurant will have one sign on the front of the building illuminated from above. Can I have a second?
I'll second it, Karen.
Who is that, Steve?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, you have a design review. And thanks everybody for staying an extra hour. This makes a big difference. Scott, do we have anything coming up other than, I think we already talked about this, right? Or continuation of the other building in October, correct?
That's correct, Karen. The only thing that we're going to have in October is the continuation.
Okay, and what do we have in November?
At this time, I have nothing scheduled. I would imagine we're probably going to have something for the Highlands coming up.
Okay. We don't typically meet in December. I just wanted to take a poll of, because it's so close to the holidays and people travel. Are any of the planning commission members going to be unavailable in December if we do need a meeting? I just want to, Bill, you're going to be gone?
The last 2 weeks, Karen, maybe possibly 2.5 weeks.
Okay. So yeah, our meeting would be on the 19th and you won't be available for that.
That's correct.
Anybody else? Okay, so we'll have to make sure if we do have a December meeting that Leah's available. Otherwise, we won't have a quorum. So with down Jenna. Okay, I think that's it on my end. Does anybody else have anything to say before we go? Hearing nothing, I will call this hearing closed. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your time.
Here, have a good evening.
Good night.